Okay, so let's get going. It's all about creating a compelling startup brand, and I believe people can see my screen. And if you don't, let me know you can't see it. I can't hear anybody, so I would want people to tell me, talk to me.
Yes, I can see it.
Amazing. Thank you, Abdul Rahman. So one thing, there is only one ground rule today, and that is we will engage. We will have a conversation. It's not a one-sided. I am not here to say anything. I'm here to learn also, like everybody else. So ground rule, let's engage, let's converse. Stop me wherever you want to stop me. Let's talk about it. If something is not clear, let's hash it out, And there are a few other people I have seen who are quite senior in marketing world. So I would want their help also if they want to jump in, So let's converse. I would not be able to see your questions on the chat. So stop me, talk. We talk is good. It will keep me excited also. So today it's split into three parts. We'll just talk about some concepts, that is the base, if I may, and those concepts will lead into a brand building framework. I'm an engineer. You would have read that. So it will be an equation. And how does that equation work? We'll talk about that. And then the core of it is all about how do we make it compelling. Yeah. And as I said again, stop me wherever, let's chat, let's discuss. The more, the merrier, you know. So starting with the concepts and, everybody, what I have seen and the reason why I'm here today is that I have met a few startups who are technically very savvy and they, once they have a product ready, they start thinking about the brand. And that's, I believe, we should be thinking about the brand day zero. And the reason is that we should be thinking about the brand day zero is because startup strength or success is all in the longer term, not in the shorter term. In the longer term, it's directly proportional to the brand strength. And why do I say that is, initially when you're bootstrapped, you can work based on your relationships. But as you go along, investor would want to see traction. And investor interest is directly proportional to consumer or customer traction. And consumer and customer traction in the longer term is directly proportional to brand strength. So net startup success in the longer term, and when I say longer term, more than a year, it is driven by the brand strength. Because either a consumer or a customer will have to hire you, hire your service or a product that you are giving. And while they do that, they'll have to fire somebody also. So, and hiring and firing is difficult. So any questions here? Any thoughts? Any pushback?
Yes, Farhan. As we move on, thank you for inviting us for this. Hopefully, it will be beneficial for all of people here today. But as we move on, I need you also to define brand strength. What does brand strength mean? Because you could have a nice brand design, architecture, logo, but does that make you a brand? Uh, does it give you brand strength?
So Faisal, thank you for joining. And yes, I will talk about that. That will be when we talk framework, that is the second section. We'll jump into that. So good, good. And I hope everybody would be jumping in like Faisal and Abdul Rahman did. So, and Faisal is joining us from Saudi Arabia. So let's move on. So what is a brand? Brand is a perception. As Faisal was saying, there are these colors, etc., etc., etc. But all of those things create a perception, and that perception is our head, the startup. No, the perception is in the customer serving. For example, if I say Ditto goes into your mind, Racket might be communicating whatever they want to communicate. But the brand are all in the consumer or a customer head. So brand is a perception, not in our control, in somebody else, but we can control or try to manage that perception. That's the first concept. Brand is a perception. And perceptions start building day one. As soon as you get in touch with the brand, there is a perception that you create. That's how our mind works. We, like Kareem, 7, 8 years ago, it was a car hailing company, but there was a perception about Kareem. And that was not mainly driven by what Kareem was advertising or was talking. It was based on experience, and we'll talk about experience also. And as you get in touch with the brand, the more a consumer or a customer gets in touch with that brand, the perception dilutes or strengthens. And we'll talk about how do we strengthen that perception. So any thoughts, any questions so far? There is only one rule here: be engaged. So let's continue to chat. And I won't be, oh, my connection is a little bit unstable. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So moving on. So brand is a perception, and how is that perception built? Perception is built through a promise, experience, and word of mouth. And you would notice they are multiplying. So anything that goes up will take the whole perception up. And if something is zero, the whole perception goes to zero. And let me explain, promise and experience are in your control. And let me explain promise. Promise is, hey, Dettol, it kills 99% of viruses and germs. Yeah, that's in their control. Experience is when you're using the product, how does it feel? Kareem will take you from A to B, and I'm talking Kareem, not the super app Kareem, but Kareem in olden days. The experience was when you sit in the car, how did the captain treat you? How did he talk? Did he find the way properly? All those things. That's the experience. Those are in control of the startup. Word of mouth is not. How as soon as a person leaves the car of Kareem, whatever they talk about is not in your control. It is influenced by what is in your control, but it's totally not in your control. And if that word of mouth goes negative, the brand perception starts to go down. If the experience or the word of mouth goes positive, or the promise, the brand perception starts going up. Any thoughts, questions, pushback, comments, suggestion, feedback? Okay. So Ahmed Jalal said, hey, when Kareem let go of a number of people at the beginning of pandemic, brand got hit. Yes. Would you ever advise Kareem to go through the redundancy or hold back because the cost of brand was higher than the cost saving? So Ahmed, very good question. My thought on that is, the brand is there to serve a purpose, a business purpose, as well as building that equity with the people or the perception. The narrative that Kareem had, if that was controlled, people would not have felt negative about it. And I'll give you an example of Emirates. So Emirates let go of a lot of people. However, Emirates just did not say, oh, 5,000 people leaving. Emirates said, currently we are furloughing these people. We won't be able to pay them because our planes are not going, etc., etc. However, these will be the first one in as soon as we start flying again. So that's how they managed it. And Emirates brand did not get a hit. Talabat on a different level took the prices up of delivery and everything because everybody was sitting home and ordering food. Talabat is a UAE company, which it's like Food Panda. Its brand got hit because one, they were hiring a lot of people, but their cost of or their the commission that they were taking from the restaurant went up, and that hit negatively. So what I'm telling you is it's the narrative, the story that we tell that would have. My understanding is Kareem just let go of people and it was in the news. And that's where the brand got hit because me as a person, if I'm losing job, everybody's losing job. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a great question you asked. And you can say it. I can't keep checking the chat, but you can say these questions. So brand perception is the promise in our control, experience that we can control, and word of mouth. And these are multiplying. Anything goes negative, things go negative. Yep. Now, promise, and this is very important, needs to be relevant and consistent. Let me double click on it. So assume you are walking around in a mall and you are trying to, you are in a walking around in a mall and you are looking to get ice cream for your child. And a sales agent comes to you and says, hey, I'm here, I'm about to sell you a DMAC apartment, that's an unrelevant message for you at that time. You would not listen. Or in other words, if when you are in a grocery store, there is a lot of chatter happening, you are ignoring it because for you at that time, relevance is what you are interested in. That's I have to buy 1, 2, 3, and then I have to walk out. If that sales agent was, hey, I have a cone ice cream or this ice cream, you would have totally listened to that person. Yeah. So promise has to be relevant, which means the time you talk to your audience, what you talk to the audience, they are open to it, they are receptive. We are spending so much time on screens these days, like 2, 3 screens are open, our mobile, our laptop, and the TV. We are being bombarded. Relevance keeps getting important. Yeah, that's why during Ramadan, a lot of food companies start advertising because suddenly it's important. Everybody's hungry. They're looking for food. Summer times on a beach, 7-Up or Sprite is giving away these samples because it's relevant and people are open to it. Winter time Sprite, I'm not sure if people would, but coffee would be relevant. So promise has to be relevant and it has to be consistent. And this consistency, this is the second key here to the promises. If I tell you my name is Farhan, you listen, you might register it. Second day I come and I say I'm Ahmad, and you're like, okay, who is he? Third day I come and say I'm Khan, and you are totally confused now because my message to you was different 3 times. Farhan Ahmad Khan, and you're like, I'm not sure who he is. The fourth day I come and he's like, I'm wondering what name does he have today. If I was day 1 Farhan, day 2 Farhan, day 3 Farhan, day 4 Farhan, fifth day I walk and you will know, Farhan, I know you. Because consistency registers and brain is very lazy. That's how it has been designed. And it's lazy on the messages that is coming in. It is very active in keeping us alive. So if something consistent keeps coming in, it remembers. I'll give another example. The first day you are going to office, new office, your brain is totally active. You are trying to find your way through. Fifth day, you just reach. You don't even know, because 4 days, 5 days, you have consistently gone through the same route. So for people to hear and register your promise, it needs to be relevant and consistent. Else, it will be just that real estate guy. Yes, Samira, that's good. Tell me. Oh,
Hi, so am I audible?
yes, perfectly.
Okay, so you say relevancy and consistency is the key to promise, but how can a brand, so you see brand evolves with time as well. So how do you think consistent messaging is really important because the brand is going to evolve? Jo pehle day 1 pe tha, it's not going to be on day hundreds, right? So how do you ensure consistency in the messaging when the brand is also evolving?
Yeah, so very good question. So we have a core. So for example, core for Dettol is healthy homes and peace of mind. Yeah. So their message is either disinfection or, wash your hands. The messages are changing, but it's always on that core. So it's a great question. And the answer is we need to have our core right. And whatever message or whatever story we are telling needs to link to that core. I'll give an example, and this is coming from my personal experience when I was in P&G. PERT Plus, I don't know if you remember that there used to be in late 90s, early 2000, there was a Sink Boy campaign. Adnan Siddiqui was going on the beaches, cleaning people hair, and say, oh, it's so smooth, so soft. Adnan Siddiqui became the brand at that time. And PERT said, Adnan Siddiqui, we don't want Adnan Siddiqui, we will go to confidence route now. And it was these, testimonials, no Adnan Siddiqui. The sales went half within 3 months. 50% of volume was lost because P&G moved out of a consistent message. So I don't know, Samira, does it answer you? So what I'm saying, we stay true to our core, but we keep evolving within that core. But we don't go way out of our core. If we do, consumers will get confused. And I'll give another example. Kareem today is talking about super app, super app, super app. People are still thinking, it's car hailing, car hailing, car hailing. And it will take them time to go to super app. If they say that, hey, we are a super app, we are a car hailing that or app that can, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Suddenly people may start registering because they are going from the core. Sumera, did I answer you?
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Okay, good. Keep the questions coming. Experience, another thing important. And the experience is all about the 5 senses. Uh, talking about Kareem again. Kareem promises you to take you from A to B. You sit in the car. It is nice, decent car. The captain is very talkative or is helpful to you, etc., etc., etc. Car feels clean, smells okay. Your experience is good. Now imagine you sit in the car and it is stinking. You would not say anything to the captain. The brand Kareem goes down in your mind. Or you close the door and it is sticky. Brand Kareem goes down. So promise and experience go hand in hand. Emirates, when you sit in the plane, it's the same music. Everybody looks similar. They have a way. They are playing with they are inculcating the 5 senses. They are trying to keep it consistent. Dettol, we talked about green. Everything is green coming in. So that's brand and culture. How does one create the other and not? Okay, we'll come to that, Ahmed, on the culture bit. So experience is all about how do we stay consistent and relevant on those 5 senses. And it also means that consumers are checking the delta versus the promise. We promise something to them. How was the promise delivered? Food Panda in Pakistan, if they are saying we will deliver within 15 minutes, I'm just making it up, and food comes in 20 minutes, you are like, I don't like it. If food is cold, you don't like it. So the sense and the promise both need to go hand in hand. Ahmed, before I jump to your question, any raise hands, anything missing here, not missing here, any pushback, any thoughts? So, Ahmed, to answer you, brand is owned by the consumers, as I mentioned. It's a perception that is with the consumer. Culture is what you are doing as an organization. Now, if you are Emirates or Kareem, i.e., there is a human-to-human interaction, then culture will build the brand, because culture essentially is the the behaviors multiply, basically, so how, when you call somebody, how was their behavior if you're calling a call center, etc. So culture may help build a brand depending on if it is human to human interaction. P&G culture may or may not help build a brand because the brand is on the shelf, people take it home, and the R&D works and all those things. It's more of a promise driven. So Ahmed, I don't know if this answers your question.
So can I just add, I think, you see, if you look at Amazon, the part of Amazon is delivering low prices. And the way they deliver is through their culture. Is apparently, the story goes, Uddar, they get their managers to make their own tables. So they're planks of wood, and they get them to make them so that they know the value of cost. So that drives brand, and particularly in tech space. Now, a lot of times now what we are seeing, a lot of branding through giveaways, people joining, young people joining, getting free giveaways of cups and mugs, a lot of branding done through that, which to me is very superficial, and it's not creates culture and doesn't build a brand in the long term, and you spend a lot of money on it. So I just wanted to link the two together of culture and the brand that you build. Thank you.
Ahmed, totally agree, and thank you for your build. So brand, remember, just it's a perception, promise into experience, into word of mouth. So that is the first part where we were talking about the, how perceptions are built, and perceptions are with the user, not us. And Ahmed, to your point, totally, if I'm putting my brand on LinkedIn and trying to make something out, we gave to new hires these mugs, I'm not sure if that will build the long-term brand, but maybe they're talking to the investor to say, hey, we are up and coming. But I totally agree with your point. So now coming to the brand building framework, and Faisal, we are getting close to what you said here. So first step, start day zero. It's not that we'll find a product and we'll make some sense out of it. We have to start day zero. In the end, people will hire our brand or our service. Longer term success, as Ahmed was talking about, is driven by what consumer or customer perception is. So we have to start day zero. We need to have a very good understanding of who we are targeting. And they go hand in hand, investor as well as the customer or the consumer. And the reason why I say who, because if the message has to be relevant, we need to understand that who we are targeting and what will I tell them that they are listening to me. Else they will it will in and out. They would not listen. Step number 2, we need to know our who much, much, much better than making a product and just trying to sell it. Third is then coming to what Sumaira, you mentioned, the promise and experience. What are we? We need to, what is our core? And I've underlined it to be simple. And the reason why I say it needs to be simple is brain is lazy. If we can, within 5 to 10 words, tell what our brand is all about, brain will remember. But if I tell you, like, as I said, Farhan Ahmad Khan, if I come to you and say, I am Farhan, and I was in GIKI and then in LUMS, and Faisal was with me, and then Abdur Rahman was with me, and suddenly you start losing. Who was he? So the core needs to be simple. And Easy Fresh has done great on that core. What do they stand for? So simple promise and experience. And remember, don't forget the experience, because in the end, we lose out a lot on experience. And let me give you an example of experience. So a company which, a startup which was into meat delivery, they came to me and they were talking about, we get the initial order, but we don't get the repeat. And we have done a lot of research. We can't find what is not driving the repeat. And I was like, okay, who delivers the meat? So the first question was, who are you competing with? And they say, we are competing with the butchery down under the apartment buildings or next door. Okay. And who delivers your meal? Uh, some guy on a motorcycle. And what is he wearing? He's wearing normal clothes. Okay. And how is the meat delivered? Just like a butcher delivers. Say, oh, so there is no differentiation. Why don't you put ice under the meat that is delivered? So suddenly the housewife will feel, oh, this guy knows the meat and he's trying to keep it cold and keeping it away from the elements or the hot weather. And they just did that one small thing, and suddenly repeat started. It was basically the experience that, hey, trust us. We will deliver you the best meat there is. And it was all about creating that trust. So what the second step, third step is what we need to have. If we understand the who, then what becomes very easy? What is that core of our message and what experience do we want to, and is it relevant to our target audience or who, as we say? Yeah. Now, promise can be functional, which is Dettol kills germs, or Kareem, it goes from A to B, or it can be emotional. And emotional is peace of mind. That's emotional. Or purpose is a very higher order where, you would have noticed Dettol talking about, cleaner Pakistan and, around all the campaign that they do on hand wash. I'll give another example of Glad, a brand that I worked on sometimes back. It's bags and wraps, the sandwich bags, etc. It was all about functional. Functional was all about a freshness. Emotional was about, hey, your food lasts longer, so you don't have to cook over and over again. And this was an Australian campaign. And then they started realizing that it's a single-use plastic which is going down. People are moving away, so they went higher purpose. They went, Glad as a brand will put an end to irresponsible waste, and they started making compostable bags, etc. So that purpose led them. Us, old generation, me, 40 plus, I'm a functional emotional guy, but the millennials who are coming in and even the younger generation, my kids, they stand behind the purpose. So think, what is your purpose? What's your why? Why is the startup there? Because your consumer might rally behind that purpose versus just an emotional message of peace of mind. Experience we talked about, the 5 senses. If this is differentiated, this is number one compelling. First thing, and there are 2 more which are coming. This is the first thing that will make it compelling. That, hey, they are different than the rest. Any thoughts, any questions? Faisal, I'm looking at you. Does this answer so far? Because the strength is driven by the emotionality, the purpose, and the senses and differentiation. That is one part of the strength. And we'll come to 2 more which are coming.
Absolutely, Farhan, absolutely. And I fully agree with what you were saying. Perception is not easy to build. It takes a lot of efforts. It takes everyone's contribution. It's easy to design a logo and colorful branding, but to build that brand in the mind of the consumer, that will takes time and a lot of efforts.
And consistency and relevance. Totally, Faisal, you summarized it very well. So, any questions here? Any thoughts? Pushback? G.
Farhan, am I audible?
Oh, perfectly.
Okay. So at times, the purpose kind of, for example, take Pepsi or Coke. I mean, they are selling a product that is not healthy. So, I mean, for them to uh, state a purpose that aligns with their audience becomes very difficult. Or, I mean, Pepsi has done some work on those lines. So they had a different product line coming in. So they can kind of still say they don't contribute to the gluttony and everything. But Coke has intentionally stayed on those lines of, emotion of joy and all that. And, so I don't know, I mean, if you have to talk about what would be the purpose of Coke brand, How would you put it?
Oh, it's a very difficult question. So, it's difficult. So I'll just throw a few ideas. What I will do if I am Coke, I will reframe. I'll say, uh, I might rally around sustainability, and I'll say every ingredient of R is sustainable or through, so that's our purpose. So we are, I'll just take people's mind out of that sugar and towards sustainability. That's one thought. I'm reframing, as you said. Or I'll start heroing in all the pitches, I'll start heroing all those other products that we have. The company is still Coke, but I might saying, hey, our potato chips are organic. I'm just making it up. Or this tea brand is, coming through this. So it's a difficult question. I agree, but I believe we might have to reframe. I don't know, but this is a good discussion. If you want to double click, I would want to hear your ideas. What would you do?
Uh, I think what Pepsi under Nouri has done, I think that perhaps is the best, that they started hedging their bet, developed an alternate product portfolio, and kind of preparing that in case the market goes away, so they still have something to bank on.
Yeah. Yes, and I think because it's 100-year-old company, every brand or every product may not have a purpose, and they are still playing on emotions. Yes, and it's on the go, so they're tickling. But what I have noticed, especially when I look at the very young audience, the 10 to the 20-year-old, they are rallying behind purposes. They do not look for Rolexes, they look for those watches which are sustainable, wood and all those things. And, at times it doesn't, I don't understand that. So moving on, now all of this is happening in your boardroom. As a startup, you start day zero, you find who are you targeting, what do they want, make a simple and relevant promise or experience. And this is all happening in a boardroom. As Faisal mentioned, in the end, it is the customer or the consumer. It's all about execution. So the more consistently we execute on our who and what, the more people will start remembering us as a brand. Now, this is remembering. Compelling is based on one differentiation, the experience that Emirates gave, nobody else gave. That's why it suddenly becomes compelling. The experience that Dubai airport overall gives you suddenly becomes compelling because it's differentiated. But that's all driven by the execution. Boardroom decided something 10 years ago. So excellence in execution will make or break that brand perception. But we need to be sure of our who and what. If we are not, then we will continue to change. We'll continue to go through our iteration. Some iterations will happen because we are a startup. We are still trying to learn the market. But the early we crack it, the better it would be. Now, compelling, and this Faisal, I'm about to double click on what you asked earlier in the day. So now, compelling, how do I define compelling? Remember, we are a startup, 4 or 5 people, maybe 10, 20, trying to roar like a lion, although we are a cub. Yeah. Or jump like a lion, although we are a small cat. We need to evoke interest, attention, and admiration. That's what compelling is all about. How do we do that? When we punch stronger than our weight. How does that happen? I'll give you an example. Faisal Abdur Rahman, you might not understand cricket, but I'll make a soccer example. So a new person comes into a soccer field, starts playing for Liverpool, and scores a goal that nobody was expecting. Suddenly, everybody's talking about that person. Or in cricket, what Mohammad Wasim did over the last West Indies series, the Yorkers that he was bowling, everybody was like, oh, he is the next Wakar Yunus, So 2 matches, which is essentially 2 campaigns for that, but they did something which was attention grabbing. Now, the question that you would be asking, okay, big picture makes sense. How do we take it? Differentiation is something we talked about. The other thing is mind opening what? And mind opening is very functional. If you show them or solve a problem the way they had never thought of, and I'm still in the functional realm, people will take notice. The goal, the scoring of the goal, the Mohammad Wasim throwing Yorkers, people were not expecting a guy first, second match, and he's bowling like that. Suddenly people noticed. It was mind opening for them. Now, there is a deeper way. And the deeper way is all about if it is heart opening. That's a better way. And that comes to the emotional or the purpose bit. Malala Yousafzai, she is like, what, 25? Everybody's talking about her. She stood and it touched the hearts of people. You know, I've forgotten the name of the lady who is taking care of, who's after the environment. I'm forgetting the name, but everybody knows her. You know, somebody's sitting in Europe, but people, because it was touching the heart. So if what is heart opening, people will notice. Remember one thing, and I'll let me explain it differently. I may say a few bad words, you might forget those bad words, but you will always remember how I made you feel, even after 50 years. That's what heart opening is. So if the promise, the experience is heart opening, suddenly you are like, whoa, that's what makes, and you are now punching, you suddenly started punching greater than your weight. Mind opening, heart opening, any thoughts, questions, pushback? You
Yes,
can
Farhan.
unmute and talk. Yes.
How do you link as a startup the level of spending behind all the activities? Because you know everything you spend is very costly. How do you compete with others as a startup?
Yes. Yes. Good question, Abdur Rahman. So this is all to do with we pick our battles. So I'm not asking that we start advertising on TV. There are free mediums there. You know, what Ahmed was talking about, you know, people are using LinkedIn and all those, oh, there is a mug and there is discount and all those things. That is, I can use LinkedIn to say things or to stand behind a cause that people are talking about or people are noticing, you know. Those are the things I totally understand. We don't have the money, but I think that's a challenge that pushes us to say things that people notice. And suddenly, you know, think of it like influencers, the way they started. Influencers on Instagram, etc., they are consistently showing a relevant message or relevant picture, and people over time, the snowball starts getting bigger. To answer you, start small, but if you are very sure about your who and what is relevant, the snowball will get bigger. It will take time because we don't have money, but it will get bigger. I'll give an example of viral marketing. You know, I won't go into TikTok and all those things, but once things get viral, people are essentially they go viral because you have done something which is either heart opening or mind opening. And that's what people, or it's funny, which is again, it's either heart or mind opening. Abdurrahman, I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you, Farhan.
Yeah.
Farhan, building on Abdurrahman's question, if you don't mind, because that's, I think, one of the toughest part within new startups is how much I allocate for my marketing budget and brand building activities. So question, is the concept of guerrilla marketing something that can be useful for these startups?
Yes, but the framework remains the same. And that is about know your who are you being guerrilla with, and what promise and experience you are after. And then, yes, why not? Guerrilla, totally. Do not go discounting. Easiest way to sell anything is to discount, But I'll give an example of Kareem. Kareem has been sending emails in UAE because they increased their prices, and people were reacting because everybody got used to cheaper fares. So never go discount route. It's a very short-term play. Zia, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was about to say from the what you just said. I think if we can focus the money on creating the heart-opening message, the word of mouth will eventually get to the snowball. I think you covered that. So to me, I think the biggest money that I would spend to create a message that can be that can be heart-opening in terms of what and why, and that should be the focus. Rest should be taken care by the word of mouth or the snowball effect automatically.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and I'll build on that. I'm working with a startup currently, and they are it's B2B, and they are in artificial intelligence, and they were going to their clients, and they were saying, hey, we have this AI, this will help you do A, B, C, D, E. And then we work together and we change or reframe the message, and we say, hey, it will make your life easy. I can't go into the details because that is confidential, but hey, we were going to the clients and we were telling the client, we know you are stretched, your day is full, and this data thing keeps piling on you. We will make your life easy by putting artificially intelligent subordinates around you or within your system. And certainly the deals or people are more interested in talking to them because now they can visualize, and it's, oh, you are solving a problem for me, versus, oh, I have AI and it's cool. Totally, Zia, I totally agree.
Thanks.
So summarizing it, start day zero, who, what, be consistent, and when I say internal alignment on who and differentiated what, this needs to be internally aligned. Because at times I have met founders, one founder tells you, hey, this is what we are all about, the other founder tells a totally different thing. If that is happening, which means if we are not internally aligned, then we will confuse the consumer or because we would not be consistent. And then it's all about consistent promise and experience. And if the experience goes better than the delta is positive, as we talk, then the brand, that the snowballer, it's suddenly hard to know, oh, they are doing much more than what I expected. The Mohammed Wasim example or the soccer example. So this is it, essentially. We still have about 10 minutes. I'm open to any thoughts, questions, pushback, and I'll stop sharing.
So I have a question about how do I quantify the brand? Is there a number that I can say, hey, my brand was 3, it went up to 9 because of so and so activities that I did, versus it went down to 2 because of certain activities that I didn't do? So how do you measure that aspect of it?
So I haven't seen any startup measuring that, but I can tell you from my FMCG experience, the way we used to call it the equity measures, and we would have a tracker which would be going in every month, and we would get the result every month, and it would be a trend. And we will be essentially be gauging people's perception on 5 or 6 variables. So for example, if we are talking Dettol, is Dettol killing germs? Do they believe it kills germs? Do they believe it gives it's a trusted brand? Do they believe that it is mother's best tool to fight off flu, etc., etc.? So 4 or 5 things. Previously, it used to go. People would go to consumers and talk to them. Now it happens online, but that was it would create a trend over time, and we could map a campaign and things going up, things going down. And PERT example that I talked about, PERT was all about smooth and silky hair on the go. When it went the confidence route, it just, all those variables started to go down and we knew exactly what we have done. So, but on startups, I haven't seen anybody doing these equity trackers or brand trackers, but in FMCG world, we have seen that. It's easier.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And there is a quantifiable. So how many percentage? And you are also talking to about your competition. So Dettol is not saying just Dettol, but they're saying, in Middle East it is Clorox or Harpic, etc. In Pakistan it would be Max, Harpic, Dettol. So and you are gauging their campaigns and you're learning from each other also. That they did this and this is what people have talked about. And now with AI, there are tools that you can, um, um, scrape the internet and see what people are chatting about.
Gotcha.
Zia, does that answer?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Mustafa has a hands up. Mustafa, I didn't see that hand, but I don't know when did it go up. Tell me. You'll have to go on mute first. Or
Hey,
it was my
Farhan.
hand. Oh, it was my hand. Okay.
It's okay. It's always good to talk to you, Farhan.
So, any questions, any thoughts, agree, disagree, helpful, not helpful? We still have 9 minutes, or we can go. Burhan, you were
Farhan,
about to say something.
yeah,
Gigi.
I wanted to ask. I am more of a product guy than a brand. So how do you see the two? Because I mean, this debate that product basically reinforces the brand, or the vice versa, that you need to have a strong brand, and then whatever you are selling, somewhat is going to sell. So I mean, how do you see the relation between a product and a brand?
And when you say product, you're talking about
The more of the functional part. So
okay.
the so the toffee in the wrapper. So the wrapper is for me the brand, and the toffee is the actual product.
Okay. So I am a brand guy and I have a point of view here. And I would go back to starting day zero, knowing the who. Because in the end, the money comes from the who. Investor, yes, they will pay the startup for the first year, but they will only pay when the traction is there. Traction is coming from the consumer. I am very skewed towards going to the who are we targeting and understanding what product do they need. And I can tell you, they cannot tell you everything, but at least you have a feeling. So I would create something for them, and then the brand runs with it. But the not the brand, the research dictates what product are you making. So in other words, let me put it differently. I would suggest understand what consumer want directionally, because they might only be interested in a Suzuki and you don't want to give them a Mercedes. I have been working with a few startups who are giving Mercedes while their clients are only looking for not even a Suzuki, a cycle, you know, and they are the cost benefit and all those things are going haywire. So that's one. The second bit is if and they go hand in hand. What I'm telling you is they go hand in hand, but brand is slightly ahead or consumer is slightly ahead, because once the wrapper is opened and the toffee goes in, that's the second moment of truth. That's the experience bit. And if the experience is not good, everything falls. The repeat will not come. Traction will start going down. Word of mouth will be negative. I don't know, Burhan, if that answers.
No, I think it does. They have to go hand in hand and to be focused on your target segment. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm and I'll build on like I'm as you're saying, my mind is going. I have been working with a startup who were getting very happy about the product, and they were like 5-6 years ahead of their time. They were like, hey, it's not selling, but this does so cool. And I'm like, you know what? When you go and talk to, when you are about to sell, people tell you why they are not buying it, because they are not saying, and that was again an AI product. They were saying, hey, we will make all the decisions for you. And they were like, hey, I don't want decisions here. I just want to see what's happening in my business, you know? So that's where knowing the who and designing your product around that, but do push boundaries. Do push boundaries on the promise as well as the experience, because that's how Apple was formed, you know? And Apple, people say, oh, Apple device is what, the ecosystem is the experience that is growing Apple, not the device. Device Samsung also has. I think Samsung's devices are much better, but the ecosystem is what's driving Apple. Last 5 minutes, any thoughts, questions, pushback, or we close it?
One last point, Farhan, is
Yes, sir.
regarding, branding for brands like Dettol is completely different from branding a new startup, and especially if this startup is a tiny startup or a small startup.
Yeah.
So the question is how much the startup should focus on branding and building the brand versus ensuring healthy financials and healthy operation running to ensure sustainability for this business. I mean, branding takes time, and you have to be patient. You have to be, as you said, consistent, relevant in your messaging. But as a startup, you suddenly face reality shock, which is I need money. I need to keep this business running. So at some point of time, you have to make some really, as we call it, the hard choices. So in your point of view, or in your opinion, or your advice, how much the branding should take part of your efforts and your day-to-day work?
So Faisal, it's not only your startup. A lot of startups come and ask this question, and my answer is simple: put decent effort behind it. And when I say decent, at least 1 to 2 days per week, if you are a sole owner, should be behind it. And there is a way out of it. The way out is, now in this tech world, or when I say tech, this interconnected world, you do not need to hire a marketing director or a chief marketing officer. You can hire advisors, or you can hire CMOs on the go, or CMOs on hire, who will give you that 1-2 days, and you do not even need to give them a salary. You say, oh, I'm accruing your salary. As soon as I get investment, I will pay you this. So there are ways around it, but my suggestion would be start day zero and spend decent amount of time on it, because you can run your startup for 3-6 months. Investors might give you seed because the idea is amazing. However, after that, investors will ask, how much is the traction? How much is the traction? How much is the traction? And traction will come from if people are willing to fire something else and hire your brand, or employ your brand, and that only happens on branding. Faisal's relationship would not work there, and I totally understand and there are way around it. So, and if you want, after the discussion, reach out to me and I'll tell you, I am helping a few startups who are working on this model, that even have CFO, but that CFO is like 2 hours a week CFO,
Okay, great. Thank you, Farhan.
Not at all. So we are 1 minute to go. You know me, I'm Farhan Ahmad Khan. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you have further questions, let's continue the discussion. If you need any help, consider me as a friend, call a friend, phone a friend, and I can help you. And if you want me to get involved, I am involved in a few startups and I can help you also. So let's continue this discussion. Any questions, just reach out to me. Thank you ever so much, and thank you for your engagement. That kept the energy high. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Farhan. That was very helpful, and I would like to see and hear from you on other topics as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul Rahman.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Farhan.
Asha.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.